Hi everyone, good Friday afternoon and welcome to Go Local Live. I'm Go Local News Editor Kate Nagel. Thanks for tuning in for a discussion here with Go Local columnist Robert Whitcomb. Thank you for joining us today.
Wrestling.
You'll laugh, you'll cry, you'll have it all.
That's right.
Here to break down this week's events, talk about what you've got in your column this weekend.
Okay.
Dominating this week's politics, of course, was a Democratic debate in Nevada and the performance of former New York City
I always
Bloomberg.
knew he wasn't a particularly good speaker. I have heard him give a formal speech before, including at my daughter's graduation, oddly, in New York. But the debating, he's not very good at debating, but the most astonishing thing I found about that was the seeming total lack of preparation. You know, getting how many million people watch that thing? I don't know. I know a lot of people looking at all his Facebook ads and all this stuff, but I think that I was just flabbergasted that he didn't have more of a comeback with a stop. It actually should be stop, question, and frisk is a more accurate description of that. And the sexism and all that. He seemed to always roll in off the street and have no idea what they'd ask him about. What did I just can't figure it out. He also looked as if he'd been drinking formaldehyde. He did not look good. He looked old. Of course, most people up there looked ancient anyway. But
it's not at that point as that there were going to be any surprises. I mean, Washington Post had a comprehensive report about the allegations of sexism,
which go way back. There's nothing new about any of this stuff. And how somebody so smart, electronical engineer, self-made man, well, actually not entirely self-made. He got a $10 million severance payment from Salomon Brothers that he was to start his company. Nobody ever mentions that. He was not on food stamps when he started that thing.
So we asked Governor Raimondo, of course, who endorsed him actually prior to the debate, when all these things surfaced, the Washington Post report, the New York Post report that he said Black and Latino men don't know how to behave in the workplace. Now, her rationale, we published this on Go Local, was that he's apologized for his mistakes, and she said the chief President Trump would not apologize for anything. That was her rationale for continuing to support him.
That's true too. But still, for somebody who's so smart to come so ill-prepared, even in how to kind of handle himself, body language, and he stood there like a dead toad most of the time.
Do you think?
I don't understand that.
Do you think that the plan was to set the bar low, low? But the conversation this week was just dominated by how much money he had poured in already into the race, and to have this performance. And there's another debate next week. I really think next week will be a huge litmus test, if you will.
Oh, absolutely. Will he learn that money isn't enough, as I wrote? Money's not enough, that you actually have to prepare yourself, not only what you're going to say, but how you're going to say it, body language and all. He would also sort of raise his hand like that. You've got to be all over the place like Elizabeth Warren.
I think she'd done a little preparation.
Even though I think that kind of flailing around puts off a lot of people.
That would be Elizabeth Warren. Yeah,
Elizabeth Warren and her voice on the edge of hysteria. I don't think she's hysterical. I think she's very self-disciplined. Very well prepared, but it comes across as sort of hysterical, while Amy Klobuchar is much more, kind of
but don't you think
presidential, if that's the right word.
Klobuchar, had a solid performance, but overshadowed by Warren, and Sanders really had a very strong on point. He was kind of in the middle there and just kept drumming home his message.
I thought he did very well. I mean, he comes across as sort of a fanatic, the head of some weird cult, which he sort of is. Trump and he have that in common. They're both running cults. And I don't think it's going to be, other than a major economic crash, I think Trump will probably wipe the floor with him in the general election.
And you say him, you think Sanders emerges?
I'm not so sure yet.
Okay.
I think it's a very uncertain year.
It's very uncertain right now.
I mean, who would have guessed Donald Trump?
Actually, Josh Fenton had.
I thought he would win the general election, if you recall. I think, I was still. In my famous drive from Western Virginia up here through Pennsylvania and so on.
Saw the signs?
Saw the signs. Literally saw the signs.
You saw the sign. Right. Let's talk a little bit about the governor. Go Local had reported this week her image and her bio. Have you heard of that position, a partner emerita? It's usually.
I wish he hadn't done that.
Well, it's not,
I think the overlap public-private sector, and it seems to give kind of gravitas drumming up business for that.
But see,
she shouldn't be on there.
It wasn't her. I'm sure it wasn't her choice. If
no.
you know, we had the opportunity to ask. I'm sure it was decided by PJC.
So
you know, she's got an ethics ruling that says she has to have a de facto firewall, if you will, between her former company. So she could easily claim, "Look, I didn't put it up there." But for PJC to give that specter of that luster of a Bloomberg supporting governor, even John Marion with Common Cause said, it looks, you know,
bad optics.
Profiting off of
very bad optics.
the position that the governor is in.
And then, you know, the connection with Bloomberg. You know, Bloomberg, you know, he's certainly a very admirable character, very successful businessman. I think successful, but 3-term by changing the law, mayor in New York. Still having, you know, he's a Wall Street guy. I mean, he made his money by selling data to Wall Street, basically, the blocks, the Bloomberg blocks. And then in this somewhat populistic time for Gina Raimondo to kind of glom onto that is probably bad politics, I think.
So it's interesting to see within the Democratic Party the battle for the soul of the party itself. I mean, obviously last election we saw that Hillary had the DNC, hook, line, and sinker. The Sanders campaign obviously very much chafed at that. We see Biden kind of wallowing in
Biden has one I worked with Obama. This is not the way to go.
I thought he had a pretty strong debate.
I thought he was okay. I mean, look cadaverous, but then sort of.
But do you think that the soul of the party is sort of? I mean, again, it's not. They're not. The DNC is not getting behind Sanders by any stretch of the imagination. But do you think that Bloomberg's trying to buy his way into that position?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think he obviously is, and I think people are terrified in the general election. I think people don't like Bloomberg. He's certainly very smart. He's probably able, even though you wouldn't have known it for the debate. And I think they're just terrified of the money the Koch brothers and company are giving to Trump. And I think they're, you know, so eager to get rid of Trump for lest the rest of the Constitution gets torn up. They'll desperately vote for Bloomberg, but in the general election campaign, Trump would, I would think, be a better campaigner. I mean, he knows how to push the buttons.
So
he's really good at that. So that might be. Well, I mean, they aren't doing the right thing. The right thing is to nominate someone like Amy Klobuchar or someone like that. That's what they should do, but they probably won't.
We'll see. But if Bloomberg were to emerge in the Democratic primary, do you not think? Can you see a Sanders or a Warren supporter voting for Bloomberg?
Yeah, well.
But again,
I think. I mean, the hatred and the fear. I have to put more than hatred, fear of Trump and what Trump would do, what he's already doing since he got acquitted by the Senate, with no documents presented and no witnesses. I think there's a lot of fear. So I think even a lot of the Sanders people, who, by the way, last time around voted for Trump in the general election. You see that? A lot voted for Trump.
Well,
I think that could go out the window.
It could be deja vu, but we'll see. I'll tell you, it was interesting when we talked with the governor about Bloomberg. One of the things that, you know, apart from the apology factor, kept on bringing up Trump, We have to defeat Trump. Trump. So clearly the talking points are
fear.
Keep bringing up Trump. Right. Not any of the Democratic opponents, but just saying we have to take him out of the White House. It's clearly the talking points from the Bloomberg campaign or Trump.
It's almost the only one. I've got a lot of money and I hate Trump.
Well, did you
as
see
a fellow oligarch?
Did you see the piece that we had done that was Who Said It, Trump or Trump or
right,
Bloomberg?
I saw that, I was aware of most, it's a sort of off and on New Yorker, but and I've had friends who work for Bloomberg and all that stuff, so I know quite a bit about it.
So,
but it was just crazy.
Let's get a little more local here.
Sure.
This week, Rhode Island Realtors reported that housing prices year over year for January up 17%. Sign of a good economy or sign of a bubble?
Sign of a bubble. It's happening around the country. Sign of a bubble.
When's the bubble going to burst?
We're heading to the cliff.
When's the bubble going to burst?
I think this year.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll have egg all over my face by October. I think it's
people
going
going to go
down.
back through the files?
Well, I think all kinds of things. Even the coronavirus will affect it because that's affecting supply chains. It's a bad economic data out today about that. Supply chain, that hits local businesses, which hits the ability to buy a house and so on. So,
trickle effect. Fascinating interview this week with Terry Vorig at the Naval War College about
great guy.
The impact that coronavirus would have if it spread in North Korea.
He is very concerned about that.
They just don't have the infrastructure. Yeah. I mean, South Korea has probably amongst the best infrastructure. Medically
it's a
to
first
deal with
world
it.
country.
No two ways about it. Interesting
and
enough.
They've got that religious cult though. Oh, they're all getting sick in South Korea. Some kind of crank religious cult, and they're all
Is that what's spreading it there?
That's spreading it very
So
enthusiastically.
interesting with North Korea, we were talking about who travels, to or from, because they're not really that lenient.
That's
about
where my
that.
summer place is in North Korea.
He spoke to that there's actually a resort that was kind of at the North Korea, South Korea border.
Up in the mountains?
Yeah.
Yes.
But he says the tourism is actually a big part of the North Korean economy, bringing in the Chinese coming to go to that.
And they get their foreign reserves from that.
And now the Chinese aren't coming to
they
that.
won't do it, right.
But the smuggling, the illegal Chinese trade is really what is going to be presenting the biggest problem, because they haven't controlled it before. They're certainly not going to control it now. And the borders are in fact porous, and North Korea would not be.
That's right. If you want to escape from North Korea, you go across the Chinese border, not you have much better chance of surviving. And the Chinese are very ambivalent about that. Basically, they don't want North Korea to collapse because all those people then move into Manchuria and northern China. They don't want that. But don't believe the data from China about the coronavirus.
Oh, we've talked about that here as well.
Didn't Terry say that's...
Don't believe North Korea. Don't believe China.
No.
Don't believe any of the numbers coming out. Speaking of moving, let's talk a little bit about the news this week. Brown University wants to build a new dorm.
All right, two actually. Two buildings.
Two in the kind of southeastern portion of the campus.
Toward Fox Point, the Fox Point section of Prov. I haven't heard much pushback. I was expecting an avalanche of complaints, even including, maybe especially from people who moved to the east side because Brown's there. They kind of want it both ways.
Well, there's two
they
things
want a
to,
sort of elite college, pretty campus, fancy people. Maybe they can use the pool for $58 a day, whatever. and so it's going to be interesting. I think people have kind of given up. Brown's going to keep expanding.
It's twofold, right? So the area that they're looking to go in, a couple of houses being torn down, a strip mall
undistinguished houses too.
A strip mall that's been there since the 80s, famously held. TCBY might have a pizza joint at this point. Not exactly the shining jewel of the east side.
No, this isn't Tiffany's or something, right?
But in one regard, people saying more tax-paying businesses and residences off the rolls. But on the other side, lots of complaints from residents about the encroachment of students living off campus.
Right.
So which one is it? Are you mad that there's going to be businesses and a couple of residents taking off the tax rolls, but now we have a place to put the kids and not spread out?
That's if you believe that Brown said, no, we're going to not expand for a while, the number of students. I don't believe it.
So you think the numbers are...
expanding, and professors. The thing about these colleges and universities, they keep expanding. They have to. So-called tax-exempt hospitals, they keep expanding because that sort of justifies the managements who are extremely well paid. The bigger the place, the more money they get paid.
Just grow, grow, grow.
Grow, grow, grow. And I think the initial effect will probably be sort of to calm the rents around there, but I think they'll be expanding some more.
We'll be keeping an eye on it. What are we going to see this weekend?
Well, I think it was that. Obviously, the Brown thing. And again, I think Brown is, we're glad they're here. Walmart may have big cutbacks. We'll see about that. I think I'm sure GoLocal will watch local stores. I liked Will Morgan's piece the other day about the bridge. And I talk about that, and about the most significance of that is the reminder of the need to knit together both shores. The East Providence shore, which is looking more attractive, which is post-industrial, which is going to be more park-like, there'll be more kind of high-end residents there, and the other side, the Providence side. The other thing was that, that was a railroad bridge. We used to have commuter rail down the east side. We ought to bring it back. If there's any place in the United States that's perfect for commuter rails, the east side of Narragansett Bay, densely populated strip, town centers, and even if this means putting track where the bike path is, it would be good. That's where the track was before. And you can move a hell of a lot more people by train than by bike in all weather. So I think it kind of reminded me anyway, and other people of how great that would be, put light rail down there. And I also speculate, why doesn't Morgan do something about fantastical uses of the Industrial Trust Building, the my suggestion is recirculating waterfall, aviary at the top, and hanging gardens, So I'm trying to be helpful. We're talking about the Taliban, a few words about the Taliban. What this basically means, I think, is we're getting out. Trump would love to announce before the election we're getting out. Yeah. The Taliban wins, and we have spent $1 trillion in God knows how much lives, both especially Afghan and ours, much less so in wealth, on what has been a fruitless mission. Tragedy. Yeah, we did kill Osama bin Laden. He used to live there for a while. Where did we kill him? In Pakistan. So it's a huge tragedy, and it shows us how we misinterpreted what to do with 9/11. It's a reminder of that. We're living in that world still. Never did I think that the
2020
pathologies would last that long. Yeah. And I've got something about Amazon should offer an option plastic-free packaging, since all that stuff is ending up in the bay.
Indeed.
And anyway, there are other items too. Most of them are pornographic, so I can't talk about them.
You'll have to read Robert Whitcomb this weekend. So as always, appreciate you taking the time to come in.
Great.
And thank you for watching us here on Live. We look forward to seeing you back in the studio here in Providence soon. But in the meantime, we wish you a great start to the weekend. I'm GoLocal News Editor Kate Nagel.